I describe myself as a polyhumanitarian, someone who believes politics should be rooted in love for country and empathy for its people. I'm thrilled to introduce to you Politics Uncensored, a show dedicated to tackling the political challenges that matter most to Nigerians. This is more than just a show. It's a space for honest, unfiltered conversations about the issues that shape our nation. From policy reforms to elections, leadership tussles to governance at all levels, and the overall political landscape in Nigeria. We will dive deep into how politics is impacting our everyday lives. So join me on this journey as we challenge the status quo, spark dialogue, and work together to build a brighter future for Nigeria. Let's make our voices heard and drive the change we deserve. Recently, controversy erupted after a Canadian court ruling shockingly designated Nigeria's two largest political parties, the APC and the PDP, as terrorist organizations. The federal government blasted this ruling, calling it reckless and baseless, describing it as a dangerous mischaracterization that undermines our democratic institutions. But beyond this international storm, we must start to ask, how prepared is Nigeria internally? How is the government ensuring the protection of our democratic institutions at a time when our systems face both external attacks and internal weaknesses? Well, this is where I welcome you to Politics Uncensored, where we cut through the spin and get straight to the truth. Our goal will always be to provide a platform for open and honest discussions where experts and everyday citizens like yourself can share your perspectives and insights. It's, of course, your favorite show, and we have three expert guests who will be joining us very soon. I am your host, Okikiola Taiwo Jalakwan. You can call me the polyhumanitarian, and I'm here to make political discussions accessible to you all. We want to hear from you because all of our episodes is all about you. So be a part of our conversations every Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays to add your voice to this discussion. You can also head on to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. Hit that subscribe button, like, share, and invite your friends to join the show right now. Our phone lines are also open to you. You can call us on today's conversation on 070-2500-7749 and 070-1424-20. Let's hear what you have to say. Of course, we'll go on a short break right now and we'll return with our guests and take our top stories in the political space making the headlines. So do not go anywhere. We'll be right back shortly. You are still watching Politics Uncensored, and today we'll be discussing how does the Nigerian government start to plan or plans to address the issue and protect the country's democratic institutions. If you remember, I earlier said a recent ruling in Canada has shocked many, labeling Nigeria's two major parties, the PDP and the APC, as terrorist organizations. Now, the federal government has strongly condemned this decision, calling it reckless and baseless and an unacceptable interference in Nigeria's democracy. I have to help us unpack this and explore how the Nigerian government is safeguarding democracy. We have with us Comrade Mark Adebayo, who is the national spokesman of the CUPP. And we also have Andy Akpotev, who is a social reformer. And finally, we have Nick Agule, who is a public affairs analyst. Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining the show.
Thank you.
Yes. So taking you straight into the political story trending today, and it all definitely has to do with today's conversation. It's saying that the federal government blasts Canada over reckless terrorist attack on the PDP and the APC. And it says here that the federal government has condemned the recent ruling by a Canadian federal court, which classified certain Nigerian political parties as terrorist organizations, calling the decision reckless, unfounded and unacceptable interference in countries' internal affairs. This came as the African Democratic Congress and the coalition of the United Political Parties argued that the Canadian court ruling is being driven by reported cases of electoral malpractices and violence in the country. And the background of the story started with the court ruling on June 17, 2025, which delivered a ruling on an immigration case involving Douglas Egbarev. I don't know how to pronounce it. Douglas
Garifa.
Egbareva, a former member of both the People's Democratic Party and now the All Progressive Congress. He arrived in Canada in 2017 seeking refugee status and had applied for a judicial review of an earlier decision by the Canadians Immigration Appeal Division. However, in a strongly worded reaction, the Federal Ministry of Foreign Affairs described the Canadian court ruling as not only baseless and reckless, but unacceptable interference with Nigeria's internal affairs and democratic process. So where I'm very interested in is in the statement of the coalition of the political parties and the ADC. So I'm going to start definitely with Comrade Mark. Could you tell me why the Nigerian government, the All Progressive Congress, has particularly condemned this court ruling and even stated that the APC wasn't registered until 2013 and he sought asylum in 2007 or a refugee status in 2007. What do you think about this, and why does the coalition of united political parties still think that the ruling was fueled by observation from the Nigerian internal affairs?
Yeah, thank you so much, Okiki. Well, the first and foremost, the patriotism in me really makes me to feel very bad about that court ruling. And as a Nigerian, ordinarily one would want to, the patriotic side of one would want to say, why should anybody say this about my country? But what about the realities on ground? Well, then you don't expect the APC or the PDP to accept that kind of declaration or ruling. They would definitely want to kick back. But this same APC, a founding member, a leading, a founding member of the All Progressive Congress, in the person of Alhaji Bugaji, came out to tell Nigerians that before the 2015 general elections, they imported foreign bandits and terrorists into the country to destabilize the country in order to take over the government from Jonathan. It's on record. He said so. So, if a founding member of the APC accepted, agreed, consented to the fact and confessed publicly that prior to the 2015 general elections, they imported terrorists into the country from Niger, from Senegal, and now why are they angry that the court has declared at least the APC considered that much, that they brought in foreign terrorists into the country because of an election, because they wanted to win the presidential election, because they wanted to win an election. It's in the public domain. So now the APC should actually have kept quiet. PDP can come out and kick and do this and this. But generally, if you look at the socio-economic and political realities of Nigeria, you wonder whether we are being governed by Nigerians or by foreign invaders. Like, as if we are being governed by an army of occupation that terrorizes its population. So that might be one of the things that informed that judgment. If you condemn the judgment, what about the APC, a major member, a major stakeholder, a founding member of the party, coming out to accept, to say, to declare? Nobody accused them of anything there. No, nobody alleged them of anything there. But the man came out and said, look, we brought in terrorists from bandits from outside to come and destabilize the polity in order for them to win the 2015 election, which they eventually went ahead to win. So on the basis of that, the APC has no moral right to come out and begin to cry foul when what they have called themselves, somebody outside is calling them. It is a mirror put before them to tell them who they are and what they are. To date, nobody has come out in the APC to reject what Alhaji Bugaje said, or to disprove it, or to say that no, it never happened that way. None among them ever came out to say it didn't happen. So Alhaji Bugaje said it and nobody countered him. So I just want us to put that in proper perspective, to let us know that it was not a foreign court that first called APC a terrorist organization. It was a founding member of their own party who came out. Nobody interrogated him. It was not as if a gun was put to his head. It was not as if he was tortured. He's an elderly man. In his own right, he's an elder statesman. He came out and declared publicly that
yes,
that was
I
what
understand
they did.
you very well,
And
Comrade Mark. And
what the qualification for a terrorist other than that?
I can agree with you that sometimes silence can mean many things, and in the larger context, silence can mean yes, it happened, but I can categorically confirm or not confirm that story. But I want to hear from Nick. Do you agree with what Comrade Mark has said, or you have a different perspective to this story?
Sorry, is that me?
Yes, Nick, I'm talking to you.
Okay, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and to our viewers globally. My take on this is that, or maybe if I take a step back to look at the legal battle in Canada. So this involves a Nigerian. He arrived in Canada and claimed asylum. And his case was that he was a member of the PDP, and then he moved over to be a member of the APC. And that those parties were after his life. So this was the basis for his claim of asylum in Canada, that these parties were after his life, and if he's not granted Canadian asylum, his life will be in danger if he's returned to Nigeria. So the problem is that the thing now turned against him, because in the process of reviewing the case, lawyers went and made research about the PDP and the APC, and there were stories, about violence, electoral violence perpetrated by these political parties. This is not data that the Canadian authorities manufactured. They saw it in newspapers, on the internet, and everywhere that the PDP and the APC engaged in electoral violence. There were killings of political opponents. There were crisis-generated ballot box snatching and all of that. And the Canadian prosecutors, therefore, concluded that these two organizations are terrorist organizations. Now, instead of that working in the favor of this Nigerian, it worked against him, because the Canadian courts now started saying, oh, but if you are a member of organizations that are engaging in terrorism, you are a terrorist yourself, and you are not the kind of person we want to have in our country. So this is where the matter has arrived, for Mr. Igariva especially. So the question is that, is the Canadian courts right or wrong? If you look at the definition of terrorism, and then look at what these political parties have done from 1999 to date, including just this weekend on Saturday, when we had by-elections in some constituencies around the country, they will tick the boxes of what a terrorist organization will do. So, agreed, Nigeria has entered the diplomatic fray to contest this and all of that. We see how that goes. But I think it is a reminder to the political parties in Nigeria that yes, you can have Nigerians under your beck and call. You can do anything you want to do to Nigerians, but the world is watching you. And whatever you are doing is being documented. Even when this generation passes and there are generations to come, they are going to read the history of what their parents and grandparents and great-grandparents did in the Nigeria of today. So it is just for people to exercise caution and be careful. Look, we should all work for the benefit of Nigeria to gain Nigeria going. All these shenanigans and all this violence that is perpetrated, especially during elections, is going to ultimately come to hurt us. And that is what is happening here.
Thank you very much, Nick. I like how you sort of ended on that note that definitely the world is watching, and sometimes the decisions and the things that we put out there is always what determines how we are seen on the international bodies. And I remember very well that I was talking to a colleague of mine about how Nigeria has been blacklisted on so many fronts, and it brings people to wonder. Immediately someone meets you, especially from the international space, and you say you are Nigerian, there's automatically mixed feelings. They can neither be here nor there. There's either suspecting or happy that you're there. So many things have sort of painted us in the light that we don't want. And that's one of the reasons why we're having this conversation about how, first, from the Nigerian government, how do they plan to start to address some of these challenges and start to protect our democratic institutions. So yes, that's all we can take on the political brief this morning. We'll go on a break quickly and then come back with our hot topic for today. So do not go anywhere. We'll be right back.
Tell us you're a Nigerian without saying a word. Energy security is one of the most pressing issues for many developing countries like Nigeria. And if there's going to be any meaningful progress, addressing our energy issues is non-negotiable.
I know see light for my house. Make them do something.
Band A is expensive. I literally have to turn off all my appliances just to reduce costs.
We need lights.
Introducing the Energy Outlook, your go-to show for everything energy. Every week, we will bring you the latest insights, innovation, and in-depth analysis of Nigeria's energy sector. From policy discussions to regulatory insights, we will analyze the key decisions influencing growth and sustainability in the energy sector. We'll bring you the human stories behind the headlines, giving you a personal perspective on the broader energy challenges. Join me every Friday at 6 p.m. for the Energy Outlook, your guide to the future of energy, where energy means business.
Thank you for staying tuned. If you just tuned in, you are still watching Politics Uncensored, and we're discussing how the Nigerian government plans to address the challenges and start to protect our democratic institutions. Our phone lines are still open to you. You can call us on 070-2500-7749 and 070-1424-2420. You can also comment on our YouTube channel. We're ready to listen to you. I still have Comrade Mark and Nelk here. So first, starting straight with Comrade Mark Adebayo. You know, the government's response was quite swift and firm, but does rejecting Canada's ruling automatically defend Nigeria's democracy? Or is it just a PR move that we're seeing, happen with Nigerian government? I've seen many times where we come out to openly say we do not agree, we totally condemn, we totally do this, but every day we still see different countries start to blacklist us on different grounds. So do you think that just rejecting Canada's ruling automatically defends Nigeria's democracy, or is this, would you call it a PR move? Do I have Comrade Mark here?
doesn't. It doesn't address it. It is a belated attempt at damage control, but it's a little too late. Meanwhile, before I go further on that, I just want to make a correction. The other time I was saying Bugaji is Kawu Baraje. It's Alhaji Abubakar Kawu Baraje that I wanted to mention, not Bugaji. So just to put that on in purpose, I mean, the man that said the APC brought in, that their own party brought in militias from Senegal, from Mali, from Niger, and I just want to correct myself on that. Now, the real work, the proper work is here in the country. It's for the government itself to work on the country, to work on the way they provide leadership in this country. As not to see us. You mentioned the fact that when you go outside, you mention you identify yourself as a Nigerian. Many people look at you suspiciously in a kind of way. I mean, that is what happens to all of us. So it is because of the kind of way that this country is being run. That is why they see us as people like that. And because of a few Nigerians who do all manner of nonsense, all over the place on the internet. So that's good. Nigeria lacks the proper leadership for us to be identified as a country of people that are responsible. And that is the kind of situation that we have. The way they run the economy is bad. The way they run the politics is not good. The way they conduct the elections, it left much to be desired. And that is why we keep talking about that Nigeria requires and deserves a new direction economically, a new direction politically, a new direction in terms of leadership. We need to follow a new direction. We cannot continue the way this country has started from independence till now and continue at that and hope to be able to contend with other advancing countries in the Committee of Nations. No, we can't do that. Now, we need to effectively, in a way, re-engineer the process of leadership recruitment processes in Nigeria to bring in patriotic and competent elements that are strong, healthy, and know what they are doing to pilot the affairs of this country. The way it is going, you can issue a press statement or you can do press conference or do anything to reject, to kick against, or to even condemn, whatever anybody has said about you. But you need to be able to change your own narrative by yourself, by action, not by word, by action. Nigeria deserves a better leadership. Nigeria deserves better way of living. You cannot have a country that is described by the World Bank as a multidimensionally poor, that about 75% of Nigerians are multidimensionally poor. And you expect to have a good image internationally. No, it doesn't happen that way. You need to be able to put your house in order on all indices of leadership and nationhood to be able to be respected in the Committee of Nations. So if people call you a bad name, for instance, if they call you a drunkard, are you not? So if you don't want them to call you a drunkard, you stop drinking. You stop drinking yourself to stupor. If people call you a name that you believe that you don't want to hear, you don't behave in the manner in which they will still identify you with that name. That is why we must look inwards, we must look in-house and put our house in order as a country called Nigeria, so that our name as a country all over the world can be polished and washed clean, and then because the attitude of our leaders too, leaves much to be desired. Nick just referred to the Saturday's by-elections. I mean, it leaves much to be desired. We cannot conduct our elections in that manner and expect us to be taken seriously. And if we are waiting for this government or any other government for that matter to be able, to willy-nilly, to voluntarily try to clean up our electoral processes, we wait forever. It is left on the civil society, the opposition, and the people, the Nigerians ourselves, to rise up and demand comprehensive electoral reform if we want a different result from what we have been witnessing, where elections are rigged, where votes are bought and sold, where the security agencies compromise electoral processes, where there's voter apathy, where there's ballot snatching, where there's violence and bloodshed during our elections. If we want a free, fair, and credible election in this country, It is a constitutional matter. Our electoral act must be amended. The constitution itself must be amended in such a way that the president will lose the right and the authority to appoint who superintends the independent national electoral commission, which is our EMB, our election management body in Nigeria. You cannot be a referee in your own match. In a match in which you are a player, you cannot be a referee. But that is what the Electoral Act and the Constitution, 1999, or the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999, has amended, has given to us. The president will appoint the chairman of INEC for as long as that provision subsists. I doubt if we can have free, fair, credible election in this country. It's a major amendment that requires to be done urgently.
Thank you very much, Comrade Mark. And I'll pick it from just where you stopped. In everything that you have said, one thing has been very common, and it had to be about the new direction, about reforms, about frameworks, about dialogues. And I want to throw that question straight to Nick. Just like Comrade Mark has been saying, Nick, we keep hearing about the reforms, the dialogues, and the frameworks, which the current government has been clamoring for, or have been putting forward, if I would say that instead. They have been talking about how they are reforming this, putting this in works, constitutional reviews here and there. But yet Nigerians keep saying that their votes don't count and justice is often delayed. And you hear that straight from the lips of Comrade Mark. So do you think that this government is truly strengthening institutions with some of the reforms and frameworks that they are putting out, or this is just another lip service we're seeing for the next election cycle?
Government is not threatening any institutions. And I can give you a very clear example. We have been talking about Quam 1 and Quam 2, which for those who may not know, are two incidents that happened at two airports in Nigeria. One at the Abuja airport, where a passenger blocked an aircraft from departing. And then the second was in Lagos airport, where a passenger became unruly and engaged in a fight with the cabin crew. Now, if you look at in terms of the gravity of the offense, you will say that the passenger who blocked the aircraft committed a more grievous offense because he acted like a terrorist. It was actually like a hijack of the aircraft. And let's not forget that the aircraft had more than 150 passengers, people on board when he blocked that aircraft, and the aircraft was struggling for space with him on the tarmac. And in the immediate impact, assuming something happened and that aircraft just flew into some object and caught fire, we would have been having more than 100 Nigerian souls gone. So that passenger went home. He went home and had his meal, did all that he wanted to do. But then the passenger who became unruly, when the flight had already touched down in Lagos, passengers on the flight had already deboarded, and the passenger herself was rough-handled and all of that, ended up in Kirikiri prison the same day, right? So the passenger was arrested in the afternoon, perhaps maybe about 3 hours before the courts will close. The investigation was carried out. Case file was written up. The director of public prosecution reviewed the case file and said yes. Charged to court. The matter was charged to court. Nigerian courts that don't sit, the court sat, and the passenger ended up in Kirikiri within a few hours. You can clearly see that there is nothing like strengthening any institution. Unfortunately, as I tell people, Nigeria is not a democracy. As I'm sitting here, even though I'm wearing a dark suit, I can sew a Major General's uniform and wear it. Nothing will stop me. And the Major General uniform will look like a replica of the real thing. But am I a Major General? Major General, right? So we can call ourselves a democracy But the question is, are we a democracy? Answer is no, because a democracy has pillars. There are pillars that make a system of government a democracy. It's not by you calling yourself. What are those pillars? Number one is the judiciary, which we have just mentioned now. You have to have an independent judiciary. You have to have an independent electoral process that is free, fair, and credible, right? You have to have an independent government, and there has to be rule of law. If these ingredients are missing, I'm sorry, you can call yourself a democracy, but you are not. And we know that in Nigeria, the legislative arm of government for is being made into a department under the executive arm of government, whether the presidency or the state government, how they are acting as senior special assistants to the executive arm of government. That's no democracy, right? And then, of course, there's no democracy if elections, there's no sanctity of the electoral process. Because so long as the people are not the ones who are deciding on who will govern them, those who are in office will never deliver for the people. The only thing that will pressure, let's say, the Prime Minister of the UK, from where I'm speaking to you now, to deliver for the people is that the people will remove him from the office. So if you don't have that kind of pressure on our leaders, what happened on Saturday, they can just come and record results and call it, regardless of what the people think. It's never a democracy. And until we strengthen the institutions, which is what you have said, we're not going to get it right. I think the mistake we make in Nigeria is that we're focusing too much on the individuals instead of looking at the institutions. Godswill Akpabio, Nyesom Wike, we focus on them. Look, if President Tinubu becomes Prime Minister of the UK tomorrow, he's doing now in Nigeria. So it's not about him as a person.
But about
it's
the
about the system. And the way Nigerians behave in Nigeria and the way they behave in the UK, orderly in Nigeria, they behave orderly in the UK. So it's not about the people, about the system. And until we begin to build a system, the test of time, we've not even started.
Thank you very much, Nick. This conversation has put me in a spot where I'm wondering where we really are, especially when you see citizens complaining, you see private institutions saying that Nigeria election is completely bad. You see the government coming out to, defend it, whether by mouth, by paper, by framework. Just recently, we heard where they said the new National Policy Development Framework will solve 80% of our bureaucratic problems. And to me, that sounds very ambitious. But if I was to speak for Nigerians, they're starting to ask now, why should we start to believe this when the past reforms have failed? And you spoke about changing the institution and starting to look beyond the individuals. Do you think that this new national policy development framework will actually solve anything, or is this just another document that ordinary citizens who still suffer poor service delivery will continue to experience? And I want Nick to answer, and then of course, if Comrade Mark can give his own insight too, I would love that.
So we cannot put something on nothing and expect it to stand. We can't put something on nothing. For 64 years, that's exactly what we have been trying to do. Put something on nothing and expect it to stand. Before we can even begin to move forward as a nation, there is one key ingredient that has been missing that must be in place, and that is the rule of law. If you don't have the rule of law, you can set up as many development policies as you have had. We've had Operation Feed the Nation, we had the Green Revolution, we have Vision 2020, we've had all sorts of visions, 7-point agenda, 11-point agenda. Why have they not been working? Because we're trying to put them on a system running with the rule of law. Humanity, by God's creation, was made to be run with the rule of law. Any society that is running with the rule of law will prosper, will thrive, quality of living will be high, and everything. Any society that is not running with the rule of law is not going to do well. I challenge people, show me one country in the world where there's no rule of law and things are happening well. One. I don't look for two, I look for one. Because anywhere else in the world you go, immediately you see things happening well. Like if you land in New York today, and you see, oh, in New York, people are obeying traffic lights, government officials are using the budget for the city's need. Nobody is stealing the money. Nobody is just doing wrong things here and there. The answer is the rule of law. Take a look at the New York Police Department, and then you will know that, oh, I can't just come here and misbehave. So for so long as we are not ready to institute the rule of law in Nigeria, I'm sorry, we can continue to have these conversations every day from now till whenever. It's not going to happen. Is President Tinubu ready to run Nigeria with the rule of law? He doesn't show any signs that he's ready to do that. He has shown no signs that he's ready to do that. And I'm not a prophet of doom, but I'm just making a realistic statement that we cannot be growing like other nations are growing, except we do what they are doing, which is run ourselves with the rule of law.
Nick, Comrade Mark, before we quickly go on a short break, I really want you to quickly respond to what Nick has said. And I know that you are you speak a lot about the present administration, and you have condemned quite a number of things that has happened. And Nick has rightly said that the president hasn't showed any action in any way that he's ready to rule or has been ruling with the rule of law. So what do you think about that before we go on a break? Because I'm concerned about how Nigerians are going to move on even after this conversation. We want to get ahead of how our democratic institutions, how we will be seen on the outside, how our, when you say that you're Nigerian, what's the first thought? Are you coming from a terrorist country? Are you part of the terrorist groups? Those are the questions that I would say at the back of my head that people will start to ask. And now, just to thrive outside of Nigeria will now become very, very stiff for us generally. So I want to know, do you think that the president is ruling with the rule of law, or is showing signs that he wants to do that?
No. The current government does not operate in a way that respects or shows any way that they operate with the rule of law. Rule of law is not in their political lexicon. Now, why institutions are weak and they are not functioning as they should in this country is because institutions of government have been personalized. Just like Louis XVI of France said, "L'État c'est moi, I am the state." So that they see themselves as not as in government, but they are the government themselves. They are a law unto themselves. And when anyone sees himself as a law to himself, you cannot expect such a person to operate by the rule of law. They will just operate by the rule of the finger, which of course dispenses injustice across board. It will take a major revolution. I'm not talking of violent revolution, but it will take a major revolution in our system. Because there's a systemic rot. That will be a major revolution in terms of organization or governance of our country for us to get those institutions to be strong. Every institution, every head of institution that is even supposed to behave independently, like the judiciary and the parliament, everybody wants to be a lapdog of the president. They just want to do everything to satisfy the party in power, to satisfy the president who is there now. Let another person come tomorrow. They now divert towards that person and begin to do everything. They believe in loyalty to an individual than being patriotic to the country, than being loyal to the country, by being loyal to the institutions which they represent. It is
Comrade
quite
Mark, I think that you have answered the question, and the answer gives itself away. So we'll go on a very short break and, of course, return straight into what we need to do differently. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back shortly. Welcome back to the show. So as we are starting to wrap up this conversation, we now want to look into solutions and start to call out the issue where it really is. We have identified the issues. So now what's the solution for us? And I'll start first with Nick. Let's start to get real. If you had just 30 seconds to tell the president what single reform is most urgent to safeguard Nigeria's democracy, its people right now, what would it be?
I would tell the president to allow democracy to operate. I would tell the president that he put his hand on the Constitution, or rather he put his hand on a holy book and swore to God that he's going to run Nigeria in accordance with our Constitution. And he should let that happen. Like once the president allows Nigeria to be run in accordance with the Constitution, our problems are almost over. Because then it means that he will recognize that there are three arms of government: the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. And then I also talk about the fourth arm of government, which is the people arm of government. That he should let all these four arms of government to work together, but independent of each other, acting as checks and balances in the way the Constitution has fashioned it. Once that happens, Nigeria is ready to take on the whole world and become a developed nation within a few years.
Thank you very much, Nick. Comrade Mark, would you take 30 seconds to tell the president what single reform is most urgent to safeguard Nigeria's democracy and its people right now?
I will simply tell the president that he should look at his renewed hope agenda document that he drafted by himself and live by all the promises that he made there. He promised to produce power. We don't have power. He promised to secure the country. There's no security in the country. He promised to fight corruption. We are not seeing that. So all these things, I'll just tell him that he should hold himself to the highest standard that he promised Nigerians. His renewed hope agenda. We are not seeing any hope here. Mr. President, give Nigerians hope.
Thank you very much. So we would agree that, or should we agree that the renewed hope agenda reform document could have potentials, but without people or without the president leaving those dreams out, without it just being a document for document's sake, or just for Nigerians to assume, or for the tagline renewed hope to look beautiful in the ears and eyes of Nigerians. If they could leave those documents for Nigerians to in the ears and eyes of Nigerians, if they could leave those documents for Nigerians to experience.
This country, the United Kingdom, does not have a constitution, and yet it's running well. So it's not about having a constitution. It's not about having a document called the Renewed Hope Agenda. It's about implementation. If you don't implement the provisions of the constitution, then of what use is the constitution to us? If you don't, govern by the rules and the laws of the land, then of what use is that to Nigeria? So for me, I think the president just needs to sit back and say, what have I been called to do? He is almost 80 years old. He is in the fourth quartile of his lifespan. What is the legacy he wants to be remembered for? When he sat in Katsina and was directly looking at President Buhari's corpse lying there, what was going on in President Tinubu's mind? That when his own time comes, I'm not wishing him death. I'm only being realistic that all of us are going to die. I'm sitting here. I have my time. I will die. When I die or President Tinubu dies, what is the legacy? What is it that he needs to be remembered for? He needs to understand that today in the world, when people talk about Mandela, they talk about President Kennedy and all of that, people remember them in some way. Then if you talk about Hitler, Idi Amin, and all of that, people remember them also in a certain way. In what way does President Tinubu want to be remembered? That will be the question I will ask him.
So now as citizens, we are wrapping up the show, and I want us to wrap up with what us as citizens should start to, what role should we start to play. I'm talking about protests, I'm talking about activism, I'm talking about leadership, I'm talking about elections. What role should we start to play as citizens for Nigeria?
Well, for me, I just want to say that for the Nigerian citizen, for the regular Nigerian, we should not give up on our country. We must make sure we continue to participate in all efforts to get things right. We must speak up more, we must protest more, we must agitate more, and we must hold our leaders or our rulers, as the case may be, accountable as much as we can. We cannot abandon governance to them. We cannot abandon the political space to them. We must we must continue to call them out and demanding for the necessary fundamental reforms that will make our elections free, fair, and credible, and then that will give the opportunity to Nigerians to elect who they truly want, and not someone who is imposed on them by electoral manipulation. The citizens' action must never stop.
Thank you very much. What about you, Nick? I would like to hear from you.
I totally align my views with the views of my co-panelist, Comrade Mark. A democracy only works if the people want it to work. And the people get the democracy they ask for. I think Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians are out talking like we're here on this channel talking, but the vast majority of Nigerians don't want to get involved in this democracy. Right? And I tell people that there are, like I said earlier, there are 4 arms of government in the Constitution. And we have allowed, we the people arm of government, have allowed the other 3 arms of government, which is executive, legislature, and the judiciary, to deal with us as if we are not on the table. Right? Because in the Constitution, we, the people arm of government, we have our powers. And until we begin to exercise those powers, then we're not going to get the democracy that we're looking for. And I give people one simple reason. In these days, you don't even need to go to the streets to go and protest. We now have the internet, which is the new street. If Nigerians protest, even on the internet, do you know the government will hear? The government will hear. Was it 2023 or 4 where we say we no agree for anybody? A harmless Twitter hashtag that was trending. The government started responding to it. And the Constitution says if your legislators are not doing well for you, record them. How many have we started to recall? Imagine that we want to recall all of the legislators, both at the National and State Assembly today in Nigeria. It's going to cause a political shift. Yeah. So this is the kind of thing that I always tell people. If I take 30 seconds, I will give you a very classical example also. You know the killings that happened in Benue, in Yellow-Water, 200 Nigerians murdered overnight. Nobody talked about it. The governor didn't talk about it. The president didn't talk about it until the citizens went onto the streets of Makurdi and protested. That is when President Tinubu now reacted and said, oh, I was supposed to go to Kaduna, but I'm not going to go to Kaduna. I'll now go to Makurdi. I'll go and look at this thing. This is how the citizens get their leaders to work for them. In Nigeria, I think people are giving up. We shouldn't give up. This country belongs to us.
Thank you very much, Nick. We have run out of time, and I'm so grateful that you both joined to have this conversation with us. And I believe that Nigerians should now start seeing that beyond just demanding for change, we also have to start being that change agent ourselves. So thank you so much for joining the show. And Definitely to our viewers, today we have seen very much that democracy is not just defended by statements, it's defended by action. So we're asking the Nigerian government, what actions are you putting in place so that our democracy is very much not just defended or safeguarded inside but outside? Rejecting, Canada's reckless court ruling was necessary, but the bigger battle lies within, which is building strong institutions, credible elections, and accountable governance. Our guests have already shown that reforms must go beyond paper, service delivery must touch citizens, and civil society must not just monitor, but also hold leaders accountable. And Nigeria's democracy is only as strong as the people who defend it. So the government has a duty to lead, but the people must demand better. I am the polyhumanitarian, and this has been Politics Uncensored. Stay politically informed and stay political aware. I'll see you again on Wednesday. And before I go, do ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channel at Official Upgrade TV. You can interact with us further, drop a comment, and most importantly, follow us on all our social media handles. And remember, this conversation will continue to be about you. Have a great day.